Hello, my name is Levi Beckman with Upart Games, and today we're going to be discussing Revengineers, the reverse engineering party dice game. Now the game is simple, but it's not easy. Let's have a look at the different components of the game. First, you'll notice when you open up the box, you have this beautiful brick of acrylic dice. They're all the colors of the rainbow, including blackout and rainbow dice, and we're very excited how this came out, and I think you will be too. And each one of these dice has a different function within the game because the cards actually call upon the color of the dice or sometimes the color of the pips on the dice in order to determine how the formula that you're trying to figure out works. Next, we have cards. Cards come in two kinds. They have if cards, such as if there are any translucent dice rolled, and then we have do cards. Now, do cards are, generally speaking, they're going to be addition or they're going to be subtraction. They might have a couple of perspective dice, and with the expansion, we also introduce multiplication, and we find that introduces a wide variety of possibilities, more than enough to keep you entertained for a very long time. Next comes 20 of debug tokens, which is more than enough for the 10 people. We suggest 2 per player as you get more, and that's more of the free-for-all. If it's going turn-based, you don't really play with the guessing tokens unless you want to. There's this organization tray, and of course the rules that come in it. Full color, lots of explanation, hopefully enough for everyone involved. And then we also have the virus player card. This card is used to describe how to play when you are the virus and how to speak, if this condition exists, then do this, otherwise do this. And depending upon which threat level, you'll follow along. And it should be very self-explanatory. Hopefully, if we've done our job right. You're trying to figure out what's on the card. If you figure out what's on the card, you get the card, and the player at the end of the game with the most cards wins. You can play this turn-based, or you can play it in sort of a melee free-for-all. Now, I happen to have grabbed 2 orange dice that add up to 8, so I would say 8. That's basically how you play the game, but there's a little more to it than that. Now, your enemy in the game, notorious computer hacker named Louis Longbottom, also known as Spanx the Clown. And Spanx is in charge of the notorious cybercrime syndicate known as the Circuit Clowns. You and your fellow Revengineers are trying to reverse engineer and trace back their computer viruses to the source so you can send in a SWAT team to get them. And how it happens is that every player takes it in turn to be the virus for that turn. And what they do is they draw between 1 and 3 cards that represent the virus, and with increasing complexity. And then the other players either take turns or a free-for-all trying to race against time to figure out what that virus is. So what happens is, in this case, I'm going to be a computer virus that says total on the yellow dice rolled plus the total on the blue dice rolled. And I say go, and I keep that secret, and people start rolling dice. And I might look at this and say 7 because there's a 7 the total on the yellow dice that are rolled. Another person might roll this and say execute, and I would say 7 because 4 plus 3 is 7. That's basically how the game goes, and then when someone feels like they've got it figured out, they say debug, play stops, and they give me a token. This is their debug token, and they make a guess, and if it's the right guess or close enough, they get the card, and the next player becomes the computer virus. That's basically it. Moving forward, there are greater degrees of complexity. What's very interesting about this game is that at first it's kind of hard to understand, and then something clicks, and usually it happens after you take a turn being the virus. But once it clicks, your brain starts to develop a program in your head for how to solve these programs and how to solve these problems. And that's very intriguing because your brain wants more complexity. Well, we got you covered, because we have a varying level of threat levels, as we call them, which indicate how complex the computer virus is. You can have a 1-card computer virus. You can have a 2-card computer virus. In this case, if there are any translucent dice rolled, then add the total on the yellow dice plus the total on the blue dice. Otherwise, say error. Or you can have a 3-card computer program, which is a basic, if some condition exists, then do something, otherwise do another thing. So in this case, you get better as you play this, but in this case, right, someone would roll the dice and I would look, are there any translucent dice rolled? Yes, there are. These are translucent dice. So I would add the total on the yellow dice plus the total on the blue dice. There are neither, so I would just say 0. And then the next person would keep rolling some dice. And in this case, there are some translucent dice, so I would add the total on the yellow dice plus the total on the blue dice. In this case, there are 11, so I would say 11. And I would keep going. There are translucent dice, so yellow plus blue is 4. Let's do one where the condition doesn't exist. All right, let me roll this dice. There are no translucent dice, so instead, I subtract the total on the orange dice from the total on the black dice. 2 minus 4 is -2, so I would just say -2. Once someone has it figured out what they think the result is, they would say debug, they'd hand me their debug token, and they'd say, I think it's the total of the black dice minus the total of the orange dice. And you'd say, no, that's not the program because it's more complex than that. And you'd keep going. And finally, you'd figure it out over time. But that complexity for a level 3 is a little bit difficult to get to. So you'll get to it as you play. I would suggest starting off with level 1s until you guys feel real comfortable. And I have found that kids ages 8 and above, if they can add and subtract, then they can usually play this game and they find it quite intriguing. So really, we find that kids of all ages have a blast with this, and adults as well. I play this with my mom, with my friends, and dad, and they're older than I am. Thank you very much for joining me. Like I said, my name is Levi Beckman with Upar Games, and this is Revengineers, the original reverse engineering party dice game. Have a great day. Merry Christmas.